turn my phone off.
Okay. All right, good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Littleton Smart Sewer Proposal Selection Advisory Committee, I guess, for want of a better term.
What's the acronym for that?
We're about to cease to exist as soon as we do our job here today.
Live TV, don't even try to think of one.
Right, yeah, right, we don't want that. Anyway, I'm Paul Glavy, Board of Selectmen, Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Chuck DeCoste, also principal in this. We're joined also by our Chair tonight, Melissa Hebert, and Bob Zimmerman, who's a volunteer expert helping us out, Executive Director of the Charles River Watershed Association, former member of the Littleton Board of Health, and our leader tonight, and our town administrator, Keith Bergman is here as well, and our leader in this meeting tonight is a town engineer, DPW Director, Chris Stoddard, and I'll turn it over to Chris.
Okay, so last time we met, we saw the three interviews. We preliminarily ranked the three candidates, Wright Pierce, Fuss and O'Neill, and Weston and Sampson. And we decided at that point then I was going to reach out to the top two firms' references. Based on the information I got from those two firms, I thought it made sense to actually contact Weston and Sampson's references as well. I put together a little summary here. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at it. I have copies if anybody wants one.
No, I got it memorized.
Did I send you one?
Yeah, I don't know.
Committed to memory.
Sorry if I didn't.
My internet's slow here.
Something to do, to draw on it.
So, based on the references, or the information I found from the references, Wright Pierce's references primarily were conceptual studies. So that was a big driving factor on why I decided to call Weston and Sampson's. Fuss and O'Neill and Northeast Utilities, who Fuss and O'Neill's teaming up with, had very good references. They've all done this kind of work. All their references were, some of them specifically, Hollyville Sanitary Sewer Project actually was, they did the whole thing from sewer treatment design, construction, build, starting in 1996, and they're actually still on as their on-call engineering services contractor. So then I moved to Weston and Sampson, and Weston and Sampson's actually pretty interesting, and I'm very surprised they didn't bring it up in their interview. The town of East Bridgewater, they're actually doing the exact same thing we're doing, as far as trying to put sewer up their Main Street area. They're in the process of designing it right now. In the town of Sudbury, they actually, but East Bridgewater, they actually have a sewer treatment plant at their high school that they're tying into.
They discussed that.
What's that? Oh, they did discuss it?
Yeah. Yeah, coming down Main Street, yeah.
Must have been a long night. So the
Well,
town.
at least we know Chuck takes notes.
Exactly, that's great.
That was hour 3.
That's right. So, the town of Sudbury, it's exactly like it. So the town of Sudbury has no sewer whatsoever. They designed, or tried to, the sewer treatment plant, the downtown sewer. The problem is with them, it was very political, so it actually failed the town meeting. But they had high marks from that town specifically for working within a tight budget and laying out key steps for the town on what to do first with the certain budget you had. So after reviewing all of these, I actually kind of think Fuss and O'Neill and Weston and Sampson are superior than Wright Pierce at this point. Based on the references from Wright Pierce, from Fuss and O'Neill, and Weston and Sampson, I think you're going to get a better product from either Weston and Sampson or Fuss and O'Neill. Where I know we had thought Wright Pierce was better based on their interview, but after talking to the references, I don't think that's the case.
To sum up what you just said, what you said in your interview, in your memo too, is it primarily that the scope of work that they've historically done is different, or you perceive it different now after you've talked to these folks than what we thought it was last week?
Yeah, so, yes. I'm surprised if Wright Pierce, I'm slightly concerned because if Wright Pierce has done work specific to this project, why didn't they reference it in their references? And would be where these two clearly put references in for projects very similar to what we're doing.
Components of, yeah.
Components of, yes. And not any one of them have done everything that we're trying to do all in one project, just because I think we're such a unique project. So that's where, and I get a little nervous because most of Wright Pierce's stuff is either third-party reviewing or management plans, wastewater, comprehensive wastewater management plans. And so they don't really show me that they've done a substantial amount of design work in the references. I don't have anybody to talk to. Where they showed it in their proposal, but I have nothing to talk, nobody to talk to. Where in Fussin' O'Neill and Weston and Sampson's, I do.
So, to use your term, Wright Pierce was more of a conceptual, and if they, so.
It appears to be.
I use this analogy all the time with salesmen that I manage. A lot of my more successful salespeople will close the deal and then figure out how to cash the check. So it kind of sounds like, based on your summary of Wright Pierce, that they were trying to close the deal. Get something on their resume so that they can
Yeah.
have a reference to be able to
And that
put on their
exactly.
resume.
That could be the way it was working. I'm not sure. Like I said,
Because they did a good job of closing the deal.
they did.
interviewed very well.
And I know we had concerns about Weston and Sampson's interviewing capabilities. I asked a question very similar, like, how are they public relations, public, engagement? Now, I'm not sure if their presentation was strictly geared more technical because this was a review board.
Right.
Every one of the references said that they were fantastic at town meeting and at Board of Selectmen's
But we
meeting.
all saw the presentations.
Exactly.
It's like, ooh, boy.
Now, and that's where I'm not sure if their presentation was geared differently for us because we're not the public. I don't know that answer. But I do know, all their references in Fussin' O'Neill's and Wright Pierce's, all of them, all the references said they would hire each individual firm back, and they all said that they were great, at public speaking and public engagement, willing to come out, whenever we needed them. They all got back, fairly quickly with questions if we ever had them, I mean, they're all, like I said, they're all so close, it's like we're nitpicking at this
Right.
point, but
Well,
if I'm nitpicking, I would pick Weston and Sampson and Fussin' O'Neill as 1 and 2, and right there.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you made that management decision and took the other step and went to Weston and Sampson and got us that data, because that's important. And with only 3, maybe we should have advised you to do that to begin with, but
It's sort of, in my opinion, from some conversations I've had this week, if you're gonna go in for a knee replacement, do you want a guy doing your knee replacement who does 2 a day, every day, 200 days a year, and his team? Or do you want a guy that's only done 1 before? And I know where I'm going, and I don't care too much about the bedside manner,
Right.
you know?
Well, I'm,
Theirs or yours?
Well, my bedside manner doesn't count.
Right, that's right.
I'll tell you, I'm a little surprised, but actually pleasantly so, because I didn't attach as much value to the calling in the references, but then again, perhaps I didn't anticipate what you would do with that, Chris, but I feel very comfortable, because, I mean, I'll start with the point we were at last week. We were actually okay with all of them. At some level.
Yeah.
So if your background work has drawn some distinctions that we couldn't find before, I'm with that. I kind of want to go back and review what my negatives were on the other 2, just to see, if we can reach a comfort level. I'm not married to any of them personally, but I'm looking at some of the concerns I had about Fuss and O'Neill from their presentation, and some of it just seems like obviously correctable stuff about not getting out ahead of the town, being clear that our primary interest here is environmental and groundwater protection, and that the economic development is not a minor factor, but that's not the driving force here. Just kind of controlling their messaging, controlling the way they do the work.
Yeah, and I would feel, well, I don't mean.
Yeah, no, and then that's, I think, the more substantive thing that I don't have an answer to, and this is, I'll defer to you folks who do it more often, is, their project, if I remember that pie chart we had, is it's a marriage of 4 different outfits. And I know they've done projects before, specifically with NSU. If that model works, great. I didn't want to get into a nightmare of, having to call one principal and say, well, I don't know, I'll call Joe,
Yeah,
but he's
point
in
fingers.
Connecticut and this way's here, and.
No, and that can be a legitimate concern. I don't disagree with that. I did get from, one of NSU's references was from The Point, and he explained to me that the actual design engineer on that project was there every day. So I don't feel like it would be one of those, here's your design, call us if you have a problem. It didn't seem that way from
Right.
the references. But yeah, you're right. If, not being solely one company, it could get to be a,
Is that,
logistical
is that their norm from these other projects, or are we different in that? When they're doing these other projects, are they usually putting together a team like that, or is this
I think-
unique?
No, it's not necessarily, we're not necessarily different, but because we have such a massive project scope, different entities, I think I believe Fuss O'Neill's trying to take the best of everybody
Right.
and trying to put it together into one team, where Weston and Sampson kind of has all of the entities that Fuss and O'Neill has brought together under their one roof.
Maybe I can
Yeah,
enhance that. NSU is not primarily a consultant, right? What they do is they actually design, build, and operate such plants across North America. They have 210 or 220 that they've designed, built, and are currently operating. And I think they partnered with Fuss and O'Neill to do more of the outreach consulting, where they would do the design, build, and/or operate aspects, because that's what they're really good at. That's what they do. And then Fuss and O'Neill will do more of the outreach, the contracting, the letters to the businesses downtown, that sort of thing. Because I don't think NSU has the personnel in the state to do that. They're focused on design, engineering, and construction and operation. I've worked with them now for 7 years, and I know Wright Pierce, when they were here, was talking about the economic model. The economic model was not Don Zizzi's in the study, it was NSU's. And it's been tweaked. We've worked a lot with them on designs for downtown Boston to begin to break up, the large centralized sewerage there.
Like Cincinnati's done and.
Yeah,
Grand Rapids.
these guys know what they're doing. They've been around the
Well, those
campfire.
are just the different concerns I had grouped in those 2 areas, and if we think that those are, either one's not the big issue I might have feared in terms of there being a four-headed entity, and the other part being on their, us need to kind of get in sync with them on messaging. It looks to me, in the very, novice way, that there's more upside with that contingent than with Weston and Sampson. I hate to keep using them as a whipping boy, they're the safe one, but they're, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm comfortable with either of these
Yeah.
two. That's why I want to get
Yeah.
your folks' feel. I will say, NSU, because The Point was a private thing, the bank felt the need to get it third-party reviewed. They actually got it by 2 separate engineering firms who commented that, because, they were afraid if NSU ever went out of business, was somebody going to be able to come back in and pick the
Right.
pieces up? It was a phenomenal design. They said there was not one issue with any of the third-party reviewers, and so I think, that that holds some stock with me.
Does anyone want to make a case for Weston and Sampson and speak to them?
Yeah, like I said, well, the big thing with Weston and Sampson is they've done this exact plan. The only reason Sudbury never moved forward was because it got shot down at town meeting. Sudbury seems like they were where, they didn't have a lot of business support, kind of like where Littleton was some years ago.
Yeah, and if I know that correctly, that was specifically tied to,
It's Route 20.
wasn't it the one redevelopment of one particular, what was the plant that used to be down there?
Raytheon.
The Raytheon plant, right?
Just since closed.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so it's a whole Route 20, they got all those big car dealerships and stuff down there. We actually talked to them before we came to Littleton about doing a smart sewer study for them on Route 20, and it,
I think, yeah,
There's a
Sudbury's
lot of
fear now
internal
is, as far as-
disagreement.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
think their fear now is that where Raytheon is gone and that a lot of residential developers are looking on it, the last thing they want to do is make it easier for residential development with sewage.
Yeah, I mean, as I remember, it was,
Build off
it
the
was as
chart.
much specific to a post-development plan as it was, it wasn't just the sewer itself that got voted down, it was the.
yeah, they got a lot of factions on committees in towns with some pretty serious concerns that are at cross purposes with one another.
Yeah, and then and it said the only other thing they got, and it was from multiple of them, their references.
This is Weston and Sampson.
Yeah, Weston and Sampson, I'm sorry, that they were fantastic at, budget prioritization. So, meaning, where we don't have an unlimited pocket here.
Right.
They went a long ways, I guess, with these other towns.
That was
so.
the team that raised the CR to decrease the cost, right? That they mentioned, wasn't it Weston? They said,
Say what's that?
they raised the thing to say, hey, we could do this actually cheaper rather than, usually asking for more money. They said we can change, a change order.
Yeah, and,
They saved $10 million, as I recall. It was a design, build, operate.
oh, yeah. that
And
was-
they
yeah.
had a budget of 50 million, and then they dropped it to just under 41 million, so
Yeah.
that's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and I know some of our initial concern with Fuss and O'Neill was that, well, at least my concern kind of was that they were sticking solely just to the 2012 study and not necessarily making sure that it was, I know Weston and Sampson, Wright Pierce kind of took that whole different approach, but Weston and Sampson did make note in their RFP that some of the portions should be relooked at.
Right,
If we were to decide to go with Fuss and O'Neill, there's no reason that we can't,
direct.
they work for us, so direct them to say, here was some other things brought up, take a look at this and see if you, agree or disagree with.
I agree with that, and I should add, there were 19 alternatives studied in the 2012, and 5 of them were preferred. I think NSU identified what was their preferred given, but you got to remember, that was all hypothetical. The design flows all change, they got to go out and actually contract with people. You got an IBM plant that's 35 years old now. A lot of things have changed. You're going to have to start from square one, pretty much.
With the guidance
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, so that's why I don't have, I'm very comfortable with either of those two firms. I guess, what do you?
So am I, so I'm hoping somebody will give us some wisdom here.
I mean, I'll make a
Melissa, you guys
decision.
haven't,
Yeah, I'm not going to be very much
Mike,
help.
Katie, residents?
I said, I basically was happy with all 3, and the kind of tie-breaking, the one that dropped to the bottom for me was just Weston and Sampson because of the presentation. That was it, and you specifically checked on that and got good feedback, so now I'm back to
Right.
Sam no help. They're all good.
Well, if I'm going to rank them, I rank them Fuss, Weston Sampson, Wright Pierce.
Chuck, what do you think?
I mean, the new data is, it changes a lot, and one of the things that I had, I won't say I guess I looked at as a con with Fuss and O'Neill was location. Just a little further removed, Weston and Sampson's closer by, more local. Not that Springfield is terribly far, but NSU's New Jersey, right?
Well, no, Bruce's station is here in Massachusetts.
Boston, right?
Yeah.
Or somewhere right outside of
Yeah.
Boston. Like I said, the designer for the point was here every day, so he,
Yeah,
so
so that-
he's
that
in the
kind of
area.
assuages
I'm
some
not
of
saying
that
that's the
concern.
same person that would be doing it, but they must, they have an office in the area.
I mean, as we said before we made a decision at the last meeting, any one of these, I think, would suit us well. I think we'd end up with a good product. It almost would have been easier if you hadn't done anything with Weston and Sampson and told us about the Bridgewater feedback.
know,
and
but
the
that-
Sunbury feedback. But, and that's good, because those were similar to what we're looking to do, so,
Keith,
they do have all the guns, you know, they've got a quiver full
And I will say,
under the same roof.
and I'll give you another, more information if you want it. I was Fran, I'm not even gonna say his last name, because I'll get it wrong. The finance guy for Weston and Sampson.
Yanukovych or something
Yeah,
like that?
I was told was like, every one of them said he was the best of the best.
Yeah, so,
He is unbelievable at finance. Now,
Except that they were making the same claims.
Yes,
about,
I was just gonna say
Monahan
that.
there, yeah.
Fuss and O'Neill said the finance firm that they
McDonald?
have is also phenomenal. So it's one of those. They're all
yeah.
great.
Well, Fran is, he's, Bob, you know better than we do, that he's renowned, right? He's written legislation and he's kind of been a leader in the field for a number of years.
So I don't know if that makes your
Very well respected.
decision
I mean,
harder.
yeah, it's-
Well, just on a couple of things. First, that I'm very glad we went through the process is important when, you may or may not recall that when we ended the meeting, I said, okay, next thing is the reference checks.
Right.
And yes, we all wanted to share how we felt there, but it was based on, partial information, and the rest of it we're going to get.
That's a good point.
And we had, and so Chris knew his marching orders would go for the top two. After a few phone calls, he called me and said, I'm concerned about some of the feedback I'm getting of one of them. I think for full disclosure, or for full due diligence, we need to see all three. I said, more power to you, go ahead, and we'll better for us to have more information than less.
We're gonna make a
So
better
I'm
decision
glad
tonight
that-
based on
I'm glad
that.
that he did that. My biggest concern going into this is that I want to make sure that that whoever's doing it for us knows that, can evidence some healthy skepticism about the original plan, and to be just re-asking but the assumptions and not taking anything for granted. I think that's the most important thing that we have to do, and that we have to tell the voters as we move forward to this. And just so long as we can say that that's been done and it gets done, I'm happy with whoever we do. Now, who do I think will do that better? Well, I think that Weston and Sampson will do it better than Fuss and O'Neill, but I am both of them are very close. My gut says that the people that didn't do the report are going to be more skeptical about those who did it. But if we can get assurances in the scope that, in fact, Fuss and O'Neill is going to be just as dogged in questioning those, then I think my concerns might be addressed. So.
Let me add one other thing, because this just happened in the last 2 weeks. So in the 2012 strategy, a STEP system was recommended, a septic tank effluent pump system. And part of the reason for that is that the state of Massachusetts had a regulation on molybdenum in wastewater, which was much lower than the EPA requirement for molybdenum in the sludge, the digestate, which is then dried and used as fertilizer, so it couldn't be applied as Class A fertilizer in the state of Massachusetts. if the digestate had wastewater in it. You could only use food waste. That has changed. DEP has adopted EPA's level, which is adopted across the nation, and so a system is no longer necessary. You can pump directly and use the organics to help generate energy. So, in point of fact, Keith, your point is well taken, but whoever designs this plant, whether it's Weston and Sampson or Fuss, is going to have to start from the beginning.
Agree, yeah. So long as we're all in agreement about that, I think we're,
I think what we need to be, what I would personally think we need to remain married to are the goals.
Yeah.
The specifics, I'd be shocked if they hadn't changed in that amount of time. But if we have new ways of getting to the same end, fine. I don't mind taking a little public input here if folks don't, since we're wallowing here. Mike, would you like to?
Yeah, I was coming from a slightly different angle. Of the two remaining candidates for the ones that have risen to the top so far, how would you compare them in terms of scale of the job, in terms of dollars? What I'm really getting at here is not so much the total dollars or how successful they were, but how it was managed. Because some firms are very good at, much better than others, at how they, shall we say, use the funds that are made available to them than others. It may not be visible in the project itself, but it's visible in the day-to-day operation and how they respond to instructions and basically from whoever in town is working, supervising, overseeing their work. That's the dynamic between the money and the money. So, do you have any information about that?
Yeah, so one of the questions, or two of the questions primarily were, did they stay on budget? And did they finish the project on time? All of the firms, or all of the references said each firm stayed on budget for the most part. There was a couple of them that said they were unforeseen, but they weren't direct results of the firm's problems. They were either add-ons the town wanted to do or outside their control. And then all of them said they all stayed on budget except for one of Fuss and O'Neill's, but it was for a water project. It was a legitimate delay, and DEP granted them an extension. It was out of their control. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's kind of hard.
It's not my question,
Yeah.
it's a question actually, for the town
Yeah.
to address.
No, it's a legitimate question, all of them, like I said, all the references seem to check back where they're in constant contact with the firms. Billing firms billing monthly, it's really easy to follow costs and things like that, so I don't see. My opinion, I guess, would be they've been in business for this long. I don't see an issue with them having a problem with that type of thing.
I'm just looking through my notes from the interviews. The only point that came up for me in terms of the two that we seem to be focusing on is, and maybe it's only unfair because they're the only outfit we've done business with, but Green is a sub to Weston and Sampson. They did great work in town, but they did a highly over-engineered job on New Estate Road.
we don't have to tell Chris, because he's already, he's ungreened a number of our recent projects.
We're finding a whole lot
Realize
more
some
green with
savings,
Chris on
yeah.
board.
That's,
Yeah.
To that point, their strength is staying on budget and with Fran. Fran?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you
I don't
have,
think too much of it, just,
like I said, if you're that close, Weston and Sampson has it mostly in-house. Fuss and O'Neill is split between a few different companies. I'm just,
From a marketing standpoint to the town, Weston and Sampson, I think, is going to resonate. More than Fuss and O'Neill, just because I think people recognize the name from a number of different projects, because they're a large firm. To your point, all the subject matter experts are under one roof, under one tent. The locality, the being closer to us, if they do need to pull from inside the tent, they're closer to home. a new set of eyes looking at the plans, looking at the project. I guess at this point, I would lean towards Weston and Sampson, which is, I'm kind of, you know, they were out and you pulled them back in. And so that's kind of where I'd probably, that's where I'm leaning right now, is Weston and Sampson, based on those things I just stated.
I'd go either way. I'd almost defer to Chris as the expert, so we have someone to blame later when things.
I like that idea a lot.
Have any, what is the, have these firms ever been target for acquisition, or are they themselves acquisition hungry? That's another indicator.
Weston Sampson has grown a lot in the past 30 years, but I don't think they're a target of anybody. Bob, you have any word on that? I've never heard it out there. Yeah. Good question. I don't think we know anything about that. We've never, haven't heard it.
Melissa, do you have an opinion?
Well, I guess I would say last time my top two were Fuss and O'Neill and Wes and Ray Pierce. So now I'll just by default go with the one that's left of my original choice. I'm think we're not gonna, we're good either way.
Katie, you want to break a tie?
I mean, it's basically flip of a
I'm
coin.
happy to break the tie. I'm gonna suggest Weston and Sampson. They seemed to be more brutally honest and upfront about, you know, let's be realistic about what you're doing and what you need to reconsider. I mean, I know I have a big mouth right here.
You're in a room full of people that have been accused of that.
My impression from them was that they were very, presented much more balanced. The other guys seemed to be more like saying what you wanted to hear maybe.
Okay.
And Chris has been very nice, but I know what Chris's opinion is, and he has an opinion. I do know to tell us, right?
My opinion is, I like Weston and Sampson the best. And the tiebreaker for it all is that they indicated, well, two tiebreakers. One, that they've done this exact thing in other towns. No, it hasn't worked, but, right?
In the state of Massachusetts.
In the state of Massachusetts. Politically, they, it was shot down. Not necessarily any fault of theirs. I like that they're all under one roof. I believe you still get a good product from Fuss O'Neill, but I like that they're all under one roof. But I like that they questioned it, the study. Now, I know, like we've all agreed that we need to come back at it, clean slate. But they did question it up front. Like you said, these Fuss and O'Neill almost seemed like they were telling you what you wanted to hear. Weston and Sampson wasn't. So my vote would be for Weston and Sampson. And then Fuss and O'Neill, and then Wright Pierce, because we do have to rank them 1, 2, 3, in case something happens with.
I'm right there with you, I have the same rankings.
I don't have the same harsh.
That's fine with me.
Okay, good. Want to do it by consensus? Do we need a vote on this?
I'd
Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, let's do a vote. I'd say, because because we're here and.
Right. Justify
Camera's rolling.
resistance.
Yeah.
So before we vote, let me ask on what happens next. You go back to the contractor, right, and ask for a bid on doing the scope?
Right, once we've selected first, second, and third, we go to the first, for the non-price proposals, because there are no price proposals on the
Right.
table. We go and negotiate the price proposal with the price with number one, and if we successfully conclude that, then we award it to them. At that point, we bring it to the Board of Selectmen for a contract. If we are not successful, then we go to number two.
And so
Okay.
on, and then we go to, and if we don't want it, we
We can reopen if we
start
need
over
to?
again. Yes.
Okay.
So we would, if we are unable to successfully reach a price with Weston and Sampson, we can go to the number two, to Fuss and O'Neill.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we probably want a motion that ranks the three of them?
Yes, I think that would be an excellent motion.
I move that we rank the three firms with Weston and Sampson as number one, Fuss and O'Neill as number two, and Wright Pierce as number three.
And authorize the town engineer and town administrator to negotiate
Negotiate the price.
price.
See how I did that? That was me saying it, but it looked like Paul was saying it. So that's my motion.
I saw your hand behind his head.
And Melissa was just about the second, okay.
Second.
All right. Oh, Bob was, I don't know. All right, anyway.
He's not Steve Bannon.
Let's take a look at that. Anyway, motion's been made and seconded then with the ranking as stated by Selectman DeCoste, beginning with Weston and Sampson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Good. All right. The other topic I want to touch on briefly, and this has come up, is that we want to do both a presentation in advance of town meeting, given the, the complexity of the issue, and not everybody bathes in it like we do over time, and the public is too.
Beans and sewer, thanks, Paul.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
But, because it is a near drinking water quality effluent
Right,
that's produced
right.
at the end.
Yeah,
You're not
it's,
wrong.
Gray water.
when they
You can
clean
wash your
Chesapeake
clothes in it, that's
Bay,
for sure.
well, is it Bill Well driving into the challenge, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
I was there, you were there too, probably, yeah. Anyway,
I heard you pushed him.
no.
No, he pushed Durant.
Hey, I voted for him last fall. Is setting a date, I mentioned a date to Melissa when I saw her the other night, partially out of selfish reasons. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the rest of the month are pretty tough, so I was looking, this is obviously busy for a lot of, a lot of pre-town meeting stuff. Thursday, April 20th, is that a possibility? I know the master plan committee is in for their second night at the planning board, but I think that's hopefully gonna be pro forma, assuming we get a decent first meeting with them next week, yeah? You're gonna be away?
No, I don't think you're gonna have a contract in place by then. Realistically,
Maybe the following.
you're gonna be a
Following
week unless, it depends on, I don't know how fast I've never done these in the kind of
Right.
negotiations, I don't know how long it's gonna take. Then, we have to draft the contract, then they are gonna review the contract, and I don't know how long that'll take. I'm just nervous you won't have them even on board yet. by then.
Yeah, we will explore with the firm whether, since they could come and, even if.
I'm anticipating they're not gonna do anything much more than introducing
Even if,
themselves.
even if they just gave a version of the dog and pony show
Right.
that they did for us, I
Right.
think that helps us have a jumping off point for a
Yeah,
discussion.
and they very well could be willing to come in before we even have them on board as officially contracted on.
Okay,
Like I said, I would have no problem reaching out to them and asking them, and so, I guess I should say, let me talk to them first before
okay,
we
but
commit
can
to a
we,
date.
can we have a target date of the 20th, and if not, a week later, the 27th? Does that conflict with anything that anybody knows about? I know the 27th is a week away from town meeting, right?
27th is the Thursday before.
Yeah, see, I hate to go any later than that.
I don't have
wanna-
any issue doing it then.
See, I think if you wanted to shoot for the 24th, now, that's a regular selectmen's meeting, but it's a Monday and it's a full week before, so
Yeah.
And it's not my birthday,
Which is your birthday, the 20th?
27th.
Oh, okay. Well, it'd be great to have the engineers there, and I think that it'd be real important, but there's a lot of things that just need to get covered by us town officials, whoever can answer questions. And I was gonna run through the list of the obvious ones, the ones that you run into in town or hear about, that, they aren't really for the engineers, they're for us. How is this financed? What's the town's obligation? Is the money we're putting up front, can that be refunded through the betterment? What's the urgency of this? What's the risk of not doing it? Recapping some of the stuff that you covered, Bob, at last fall's town meeting. What is a smart sewer? How's it different than regular, all those kind of questions, which is
Bring
really
some
for us
examples
to
in.
answer, huh?
We can bring some examples in.
We actually have a book coming out on this next week, so, that
Autographed
could help.
copies available for,
Only for you, Paul.
Signed.
So anyway, my thought is, we introduce the engineers if they're on board, but otherwise, we still have a lot of information to share with the town just based on where we're at. A recap of the history, how we got here from 2001 to now.
I don't have a problem doing it, but whatever day, the 24th, like Keith said, if it's a regular Board of Selectmen's meeting,
Yeah, it might be,
that's a.
We
that
could
might-
we'll shoot for the 10th or the 24th to have a contract. I think it's
10th.
more likely the 24th, but,
Yeah,
because this is a BFD, so.
It is a
take a
BFD.
while. Yeah.
You don't have to.
Yeah, that's-
To quote Joe Biden.
Well, and Paul, I know you wanted to have enough time to, within the selectmen meeting, we'd have to carve out a good amount of time. And maybe that's okay on the 24th. I don't know off the top of my head what the.
I mean, I just
I
don't
think
want
it
to leave the
probably
public.
is. I think it
either-
probably is on the 24th, because we will have, concluded the recommendations, we will have gone to press.
If we're gonna do it on the 24th, we probably ought to allot, that it's like a presentation and that it gets a full hour or so
Hour,
of time
yeah.
anyway.
Give an hour,
Yeah.
hour and a half.
Hour and a half,
Yeah.
maybe. I just don't want to have anybody in the public say the information came too late or too little. But by the same token, if we don't have the engineer there, I don't want people saying, well, we didn't get to meet the engineer. I mean, what's most important in the balancing act?
He'll come for his
Like you said, I
contract.
think we can answer between Bob, myself, and you folks, on probably a good majority of their questions, other than this is who we selected.
Okay.
I think the 24th is a good
I'm pretty
time.
sure you could probably get one of the, a representative of the engineering firm here,
I'm not-
even if we
yes,
don't have a
I'm
contract.
not
I mean, they're
worried.
not gonna make the presentation, but we
right.
can at least introduce
Exactly,
them.
exactly.
Okay, but we should.
Short of negotiations breaking down entirely, but.
If they
We
come
can just put somebody in a suit.
armed, that would be,
Get Jim Clyde come in here.
All right, well, then the other part, beyond, their availability and, so then what, we'll aim for the 24th then? Does that sound like the thing to
I
do?
think it's probably doable,
Yeah.
more doable now.
okay.
That's
Wait a
fine.
minute, the 24th is the only date of all those that I didn't check, hang on.
It's a Monday.
You weren't coming to the Board of Selectmen meeting
I
anyway?
know, what else would you be doing that night?
Ask Melissa in about
Whatever,
2
Bob.
months, she'll be doing anything but coming
Yeah,
to
it's
select.
good.
It's
We're not the
good.
only Board of Selectmen that he toys with.
That's true.
Uh-huh. You never know.
So we need to start circulating, the topics we want to cover. Jesus, killing me, I couldn't find what we had on the board for a town meeting, from last fall, but it was very basic. I'd like to add to that, obviously, because if we didn't cover things adequately then we want to try to do so now. But we should get some sort of document circulating for that, too. I'll share what I've got down here, but if if in your tours around the town, you've come across questions people have, that's the sort of thing we want to be answering.
Okay.
And public at large, is the topics particularly you think we need to hit the, Katie?
Yeah, you mentioned that, I mean, I know the business community is enthusiastic about this, but they're not necessarily the property owners,
Right.
who, as I understand, is the property owners who would pay the betterment fee. So the goal is that we need their backing, right?
That's right. And before we ever go forward with a construction phase, it would have to be critical mass of those folks on board. I think I'll defer to Bob on this, because you actually, folks, had done some of that contact with the property owners. Granted, the information's old and it needs to be revisited, but you want to speak to that, Bob?
Yeah, we met with lots of folks who actually own the properties downtown. This may come as a shock, but there's a lot of appetite to actually do something, and they all feel fairly strapped. And the problem is that most of them don't live in Littleton. So they didn't want to identify themselves publicly, because they don't want the businesses that they're currently leasing to get boycotted. Because as you'll remember, last time, there was a lot of political foment around this. But I can only remember one business out of 98 that came back saying that they weren't interested.
How many said they are interested and will sign up?
Virtually all of the rest said that they're interested. Half of the rest said they're interested depending on the price, right? If the price point was, within the range that we initially identified, they were all pretty much okay with that, but they'd like to see the actual numbers.
Because my understanding from the last town meeting is that the 200,000, and I'm confused about the whole process, that was to develop contracts with the property owners, and that it was to get them on board.
No, that was the first, I think we're anticipating 3 funding phases. One, knowing that last fall was only a part of what the phase 1 design would be. In the phase 1 design, these folks that would be hiring, part of their job, part of their process will be conducting the contacts with the property owners. So the first chunk of money is like the first half of what'll hopefully be 3 chunks. The second half, three halves. A third this spring, and we're still hopeful that a third of it will be through state or federal funding of some sort. And we had a positive, I've had a positive conversation with Jim Arcero offline, and he reiterated it here this week too, that, there's hope that we'll get some help from the state. I don't think we will be able to honestly say to the town that, yes, we can go forward in this until that's been conducted. So the pot of money that we've already allotted and the pot of money we're looking for this spring, if we don't get critical mass, that will be spent and not, and the town will be out it. But if it's spent and we have critical mass, not only is it money well spent, but it's refundable through the betterment process.
Yeah.
Is that,
If the whole thing goes through.
yes.
This is the map that was compiled at the time. Green shows a yes, I'm interested, red shows no, I'm not, and yellow shows I need more information.
Yeah.
So this was the study
But I didn't even know
area.
we had that.
Yeah, and that's available online.
So, yeah, we have to be very upfront. There's at least 2 points of risk in this. One is if during the study phase it falls apart for whatever reason, then that's money lost. And 2 is when we get to the construction phase, the town's the guarantor, as it always is in towns if we go forward with a construction project, even though there's a funding plan in place to pay for it otherwise.
I mean, there are ways that you can pay for it. For example, in Provincetown, we did a pre-construction betterment so that we equaled to 50% of the cost so the property owners were paying for it upfront, even as we were going forward. But it's certainly the case that if we never have sewer users, there will be then we won't get repaid by
Right.
those sewer users. But many communities, we have not said that we're going to have a general fund subsidy of this sewer project.
No,
In fact,
that's
we've
never
said
been
to-
part of the plan.
We've said to the contrary, but certainly there are many communities that for the sake of investing in, their business district that produces benefits for the whole town in terms of jobs and anything else, that some communities make a decision to subsidize, to have a general fund subsidy for sewer. But we have not proposed to do that with this one.
To get to one, the design firm has to know what the initial design flow is. So they have to, at the very least, get signed letters of intent from all the businesses who will indicate what their current flow is, and then, the flow that they would like to pay for, whether, when the thing comes online, do they want to pay just for their current flow, or are they anticipating development and growth at the site? Otherwise, the firm really can't do the job without, they got to know. We came up with a number of 100,000 gallons a day, but that's just based on, sort of a number out of the sky, which is not the way you design a sewer.
And I also remember the first contractor talked about ways about making alterations to increase the flow without, with doing minor on-site capital changes.
Well, it's a phasing process. So the pipes in the ground will be the same pipes in the ground for the ultimate flow, which is about 250,000 gallons a day. So those won't change. And the building that's built will be the building that will hold all of the treatment facilities.
No, they were saying that this
But
would
then
help.
they phase the amount of treatment they have available, which pretty dramatically reduces the upfront amount of money that has to be
I'm
borrowed.
not sure if is that maybe,
No, I think we're talking about two different
Okay.
things. One of the engineering firms said that they recommended purchasing the plant at the point the town buy that,
Oh,
rather than build new. They said that would be cheaper.
and
And,
that can be expanded on, right?
right,
Yes.
they said tie into that, buy that, tie into that, it's a lot
that's
cheaper.
actually recommended in the study as well, is that
Yeah.
you take a look at all of the existing facilities and you tie them in. Because Sam Parks at the Point is not in the wastewater business.
Right.
And if he can get out of the wastewater business, you can bet that he will get out of it tomorrow.
And there was something else that was referenced, and I don't understand this all enough to know what they were talking about, but it was another alternative to building a plant. It was,
Well, some of it was the vertical drainage, that, so it doesn't end up going to a, yeah.
But you
That's
still have to-
well, wait for the
But you still have
disposal
to-
of the
You
effluent.
still have to build a treatment facility.
Yeah, the treatment facility still has to be built.
right.
All right, last question.
Okay, I know you talked about it, but since you're so deep into the technical how, in the presentation, it may be useful to revisit and rethink about how to present what are the problems or what are the issues that this solves.
Absolutely, no idea.
And the other piece, and this one I'm hardly an expert on, is if we don't do this, what are the consequences? And this is a tough one. It's a tough one. And I'm not asking for an answer tonight.
I can give you chapter and verse on that one.
Not tonight.
I won't give it tonight.
No.
I will on the 24th.
I really say, I don't know, sitting here, I don't know how to explain that, because, or even if you feel it's necessary, it's just that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, some of that was rolled out, it was, it was noted years ago, but Bob, I think, spoke to it directly in the fall, but I think we can be a lot more,
yes.
I don't know, give some more details that the layman can understand without
Sure.
being afeared.
yeah,
Maybe, unless they should be afeared.
yeah, well, a couple of them should be afeared.
All right, Katie?
Just the last
Yeah, yeah.
question. As far as the presentation goes, you mentioned controlling the message and focusing on health. And, based on the presentation I saw at town meeting, I'm telling you as a resident that I want objective information. I don't want like fear-based
Right.
information. I don't want anybody talking about blue babies. I mean, I need an independent explanation of what the issues are.
What the real risk is, what the real issues are, right.
And I don't want to be, we deserve like an objective presentation, like, and there's something else. Yes, I also feel like, I know that you really want this and that you're gonna like try and sell it,
Yep.
but I wanna know what the options are.
Mhm.
And
That's a good
I
point.
don't want it, I feel like we deserve that in a very straightforward, objective manner.
Excellent points, and hopefully they'll be well taken, because, obviously, some of us, I'll speak for myself, I'm sold on the need and the value of it, but our job is to, convince the town in an objective fashion as we can, so that they reach the same conclusion. We okay for tonight?
I'm good.
So we'll be in, motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. We'll communicate internally only for purposes of setting up the presentation between now and the 24th and getting updates on how the negotiations go. Right? And great job, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Good job.
You guys.
Oh.